General Hospital spoilers will reveal. The latest developments surrounding Drew have pushed the story into a far darker and more unsettling direction, raising an urgent question about whether anyone will discover the truth in time to save him. Drew, once a powerful and determined figure who stood at the center of multiple battles in Port Charles, now exists in a silent and helpless state after being drugged into unconsciousness. The shocking twist is that the very person responsible for this condition is Willow, the woman who has quietly stepped into the political position Drew once held. With Willow assuming the role of senator while Drew remains hidden from the public eye, the situation has become deeply complicated. The secrecy surrounding Drew's disappearance allows Willow to maintain control over the narrative, presenting herself as a devoted wife managing a tragic medical situation while privately ensuring that Drew never wakes up to expose the truth. As Willow takes over the responsibilities tied to Drew's political office, the pressure on her life increases dramatically. Being a senator demands constant attention, public appearances, and decision-making that affects thousands of people. Yet behind this public image of responsibility and resilience lies a darker secret that must be protected at all costs. Willow cannot possibly manage every aspect of her life alone, especially when it involves maintaining the fragile illusion that Drew is receiving legitimate medical treatment. That is where Kai Taylor enters the picture. Kai, who has already proven himself capable in various high-pressure situations, may soon be drawn into a role that he never anticipated. Whether he realizes it or not, he could become responsible for monitoring Drew's physical condition and continuing the regimen of sedatives that keep him silent and powerless. The task itself is incredibly dangerous. Maintaining someone in a medically induced state without raising suspicion requires precision, knowledge, and absolute secrecy. Willow, as a trained nurse, understands the medical language and procedures well enough to create a convincing explanation. She could easily fabricate a story about Drew requiring daily intravenous medication to stabilize his condition. Anyone questioning her authority would immediately face the reality that Willow has medical training, professional experience, and emotional credibility as Drew's wife. In the eyes of outsiders, her actions could appear entirely reasonable. However, the more complex the deception becomes, the more fragile it also becomes. Every additional person involved increases the chance that someone will eventually notice inconsistencies in the story. Despite Willow's careful planning, secrets rarely remain hidden in Port Charles for long. The town has a long history of hidden agendas unraveling in the most unexpected ways. In this case, the unexpected factor may come from the youngest member of the family. Wiley, whose innocence allows him to observe the world without the layers of suspicion that adults often carry, might notice something others have overlooked. Children often sense emotional tension and unusual behavior long before adults are willing to acknowledge it. If Wiley begins to question why Drew never wakes up or why Willow behaves strangely around him, those simple questions could begin to crack the carefully constructed illusion Willow has built. Wiley's discovery might not immediately expose the truth, but it could plant a seed of doubt in someone else's mind. That someone may very well be Michael. Michael has always been deeply protective of his family and extremely perceptive when something feels wrong. If Wiley mentions something unusual, such as seeing Willow administer injections or noticing Drew's condition not improving despite constant treatment, Michael could start asking questions that Willow never expected. Michael's instincts have guided him through many crises in the past, and if he senses that something about Drew's situation does not add up, he will not simply accept the explanation he is given. Michael's involvement would dramatically raise the stakes of the entire situation. Unlike others who might hesitate to challenge Willow directly, Michael has both the emotional motivation and the determination to pursue the truth. His investigation could begin quietly, perhaps with a visit to check on Drew or a private conversation with medical professionals. The more Michael looks into the situation, the more troubling the details might become. Medical records might appear incomplete, treatment explanations could contradict each other, and Willow's increasingly defensive behavior could only deepen Michael's suspicions. Each new inconsistency would push him closer to realizing that Drew is not simply a patient in recovery, but a prisoner in his own body. At the same time, Kai's role could become even more complicated. If he has been entrusted with administering medication or monitoring Drew's condition, he might start to notice signs that the treatment is not designed to heal, but to suppress. Kai may initially believe Willow's explanation, trusting her medical expertise and assuming she knows what she is doing. However, prolonged exposure to Drew's condition could raise uncomfortable questions. Why does Drew remain unconscious for so long without improvement? Why does Willow insist on maintaining such strict control over the treatment process? These questions could place Kai in an ethical dilemma where he must decide whether to continue following Willow's instructions or risk exposing the truth. All of these tensions lead to a looming turning point that could reshape multiple lives in Port Charles. If Michael begins investigating while Wiley continues noticing strange details, and if Kai starts questioning the treatment he is administering, Willow's carefully constructed control could begin to unravel from several directions at once. The tragedy of Drew's situation is that he remains completely defenseless while the battle over his fate unfolds around him. Yet the same connections that once defined his life, family, loyalty, and love may ultimately become the forces that save him. The only remaining question is whether Michael will uncover the truth before Willow's desperate attempt to maintain power leads to consequences far more devastating than anyone in Port Charles is prepared to face. Kai's unexpected role in Drew's situation may become one of the most intriguing and morally complex developments in Port Charles. After the chaos surrounding Drew's sudden collapse and prolonged unconscious state, Kai appears to be the most logical person to remain nearby and help. From an outside perspective, his presence looks completely reasonable. Kai has already demonstrated loyalty and a willingness to assist during difficult situations, which makes him the perfect candidate for Willow to rely on. By asking Kai to stay close and help oversee Drew's condition, Willow strengthens the illusion that everything happening is part of a legitimate medical effort. The arrangement allows Willow to maintain her public responsibilities while ensuring someone she can influence remains in charge of Drew's day-to-day care. However, the situation is far more complicated beneath the surface. Kai is not entirely naive when it comes to Willow. Over time, he has begun to sense that there is something deeply unsettling about her behavior. Willow presents herself as calm, compassionate, and professional, but beneath that composed exterior lies a manipulative intelligence that makes her incredibly dangerous. Kai may not yet know the full truth, but he already suspects that Willow is capable of far more deception than she lets others see. Despite these suspicions, Willow's carefully crafted explanations could still be convincing enough to keep Kai uncertain. As a trained nurse, Willow possesses the authority and technical knowledge to justify every injection, every dosage, and every medical decision that keeps Drew unconscious. This dynamic creates a tense psychological battle between trust and doubt. Willow can easily claim that Drew requires continuous sedation to stabilize his fragile condition. She may argue that any interruption in the medication could endanger his life, making the injections appear not only justified, but absolutely necessary. Kai, standing in the middle of this situation, faces a complicated dilemma. On one hand, he recognizes that something about Willow's actions feels wrong. On the other hand, challenging a medical professional without clear evidence could lead to disastrous consequences if Drew truly is in a critical condition. That uncertainty allows Willow to maintain control, at least for now. Because of this fragile balance, Kai could become both a protector and an unwitting accomplice at the same time. By following Willow's instructions and continuing the sedation regimen, he unknowingly helps maintain the prison that Drew is trapped inside. Yet Kai's growing unease may eventually lead him to observe small details that do not align with Willow's explanations. Perhaps Drew's vital signs remain stable in a way that contradicts the severity Willow describes, or perhaps the frequency of the injections begins to seem excessive. Each small inconsistency adds pressure to Kai's conscience, even if he cannot yet prove that Willow is lying. While Kai remains trapped in this uncertain position, another possibility begins to emerge. Someone else could uncover the truth entirely by accident. In a town like Port Charles, secrets rarely remain hidden forever, especially when multiple lives intersect in unpredictable ways. One person who could stumble upon the truth in the most ironic way possible is Michael Corinthos. The idea of Michael becoming Drew's unexpected rescuer carries a powerful dramatic twist because there is no warmth or trust between them. Their relationship has long been defined by tension, resentment, and unresolved conflicts. Michael has never seen Drew as an ally. In fact, their interactions have often been shaped by rivalry and suspicion. That lack of emotional connection is exactly what makes this potential discovery so fascinating. Unlike someone who cares deeply about Drew, Michael has no reason to blindly trust the explanations surrounding his condition. He is naturally skeptical and often driven by instinct when something does not feel right. If Michael were to encounter even a small inconsistency in Willow's story, he would be far more likely than others to question it rather than accept it at face value. The path toward Michael uncovering the truth could begin with something small. Perhaps he notices the way Willow avoids certain questions about Drew's treatment. Perhaps he becomes suspicious of the secrecy surrounding Drew's location and medical records. Michael has spent years navigating complex situations involving deception and manipulation, and those experiences have sharpened his instincts. Once suspicion begins to form in his mind, it would only be a matter of time before he starts digging deeper into the details Willow desperately wants to keep hidden. If Michael does begin investigating, the tension surrounding Drew's fate will escalate dramatically. Willow's carefully constructed narrative could start collapsing under the weight of scrutiny from someone who refuses to accept easy answers. Kai, already struggling with his doubts, might find himself caught between two powerful forces, Willow's authority and Michael's determination to uncover the truth. In the end, the most ironic outcome of all may be that Drew's salvation comes not from a loyal friend or loving family member, but from the very man who once considered him an enemy. Michael Corinthos finds himself in a deeply uncomfortable position when it comes to Drew. Under normal circumstances, Michael would have absolutely no reason to go anywhere near him. Their history is filled with tension, mistrust, and lingering resentment, leaving very little emotional ground for sympathy between them. Michael has always viewed Drew with a mixture of skepticism and guarded hostility, especially after the complicated events that have reshaped the dynamics within their extended family. Because of that strained history, the idea that Michael would willingly involve himself in anything connected to Drew seems almost impossible. Yet the unpredictable nature of life in Port Charles often forces people into situations they never expected to face, and in this case the connection may come through the one person Michael would never ignore, his son Wiley. Wiley Corinthos represents the fragile link that could pull Michael directly into the center of Drew's nightmare. Since Michael and Willow currently share custody, Wiley moves between their homes and environments with the innocent curiosity that only a child can possess. Children notice details adults often overlook, and they are naturally drawn toward the mysterious corners of a house. If Wiley spends time inside the home where Drew is being kept, it becomes almost inevitable that he will wander into areas he was never meant to explore. A closed bedroom at the far end of the house, constant quiet, and unusual rules about staying away from a certain area could easily spark Wiley's curiosity. For a child, the forbidden always carries a certain irresistible pull. That curiosity could lead Wiley to witness something strange without fully understanding what it means. Perhaps he catches a glimpse of Drew lying motionless in bed, or hears the faint sounds of medical equipment humming behind a door that should not be locked. He might even see Willow administering injections or acting in a way that feels secretive and tense. To Wiley, these details might simply feel confusing rather than alarming. A child might interpret them as part of normal adult behavior, especially if no one explains what is truly happening. However, when Wiley casually shares these observations with his father later, the information could carry a very different weight in Michael's mind. Michael knows Willow better than most people do, and that knowledge comes with painful memories of what she is capable of when she feels threatened or desperate. He has already witnessed moments that revealed how far Willow can go to maintain control over a situation. The unsettling incident involving Daisy at the Quartermain mansion proved that Willow is capable of behavior far more obsessive and unpredictable than anyone once believed. Because of that history, Michael would not dismiss Wiley's strange observations as childish imagination. Instead, he would immediately begin piecing together the possibility that something deeply wrong is happening inside Drew's house.